Hey guys, what's going on today? My name is Kyle, and I'll be reviewing Captain America the Winter Soldier, directed by Anthony Russo and Joe Russo. And just as a brief heads up guys, this review will contain some spoilers, you have been warned, so please watch Captain America the Winter Soldier and come back to this review. It's very rare when a sequel comes along that not only fixes its predecessor's massive flaws, but it really just makes a great compelling story at the same time, and makes our character 1,000 times better than he or she could have ever been. And guys, The Winter Soldier is absolutely one of those films. This is one of the most entertaining films I've ever seen. Honestly, guys, I really love this movie. And I am trying my best to not sound like a full-on Marvel fanboy, because I'm really not. I recognize that most of the movies have a ton of flaws, but this movie is just fantastic in basically every single way. It makes a compelling story, great characters, and just a great adventure that just makes me want to watch it so many times. So our movie, of course, begins with Steve Rogers trying to adjust to the new world while also being Captain America. He has been taken from one era, which was the golden age of Captain America, into this new world with so much more security, firepower, and more technology than he could have possibly have imagined. Steve Rogers comes from a time where people were a lot more trusting, more loyal, and they didn't have all those mobile devices nowadays. They had to use their minds, they had to use maps. But let's talk about the opening sequence on the boat. This sequence was made from the director's mouths as a way to introduce a new Captain America. And that moment, guys, where he kicks that dude off the boat, that moment, I think, was in everyone's head. They were like, whoa. Guys, the action sequences in this movie are some of the best of this entire decade. That I can assure you. This movie is filmed so incredibly well that when the action scenes are filmed, they can be from a small scale, like the street fight later on that I'll talk about, or it can be even bigger from the helicarriers, and they can make it just as effective each way. And I love the fight between Cap and that big Russian dude. It is a great battle, and it has two fantastic moves. I'll show you them back to back. And as we all know, Scarlett Johansson is back to kick ass, but still to be beautiful as Natasha Romanoff or Black Widow. And in this movie, she is just fantastic. And I feel like this is the best that Black Widow has ever been, because she reveals quite a lot in this movie that she doesn't in any other Marvel Cinematic Universe movie. And I like her character a lot more in this movie because she tells Captain America that she has flaws. She's not this perfect person. She only pretends like she knows all of this stuff, and she actually reveals that to Cap later on in the movie. In the previous Marvel films, she's been represented as this perfect person who can just do anything and kick anyone's ass and just take care of everything. But in this movie, she can't do everything, and that makes her a much more vulnerable and flawed character than we've ever seen her. So now we head to S.H.I.E.L.D. headquarters. They actually have a true HQ, and we get introduced to Nick Fury, who is once again played by Samuel L. Jackson. And I mean, you just gotta love the guy. He is just great in like every single performance he's ever made. I can't think of one bad performance Sam Jackson has done. He's done a lisp in Kingsman. He was great in Unbreakable. And in this movie, he just continues to just shine in this role. But this particular sequence in which Cap and Fury are trying to go back and forth on is with him not trusting Black Widow all of a sudden, because she obviously had a different agenda than he did. She was uploading this file which becomes very important to the plot, and Fury isn't willing to tell him exactly what that is, because honestly he doesn't want to tell Cap. There's a lot of that trust, loyalty buildup in this movie that feels very powerful and very relatable, because the world today is a lot more cynical, and I think we can all agree to that. And it's become a little less trusting because technology has really surged forward. And guys, I absolutely love the elevator sequence where Nick Fury's trying to tell Cap about what his granddad did. And I thought it's great. And then, of course, we get the reveal of the helicarriers, which leads to a very important conversation between Cap and Fury, when they're trying to discuss security and how Fury believes this will ensure freedom. And Cap says, no, this is not about freedom. This is about fear, because they'll always be watched. And then Fury tries to tell Cap that they did some terrible things. They did some not good things in World War II. But he says,
this isn't freedom. This is fear.
S.H.I.E.L.D. takes the world as it is, not as we'd like it to be.
That line of dialogue reveals so much and just keeps that essential theme of security and freedom right on the front lines. Soon we're introduced to the character of Alexander Pierce, played by Robert Redford, who is, of course, a veteran actor that we all know and love. and he's talking about politics. Now, the Star Wars prequels also talked about politics, but they talked about the boring side of politics. This talks about the possible hijacking and international piracy of some very important secret documents that seem very, very interesting. And this is one of the Winter Soldier's strengths. I'm pretty sure my top 3 biggest strengths of this movie is that it took a concept that could have been a very boring film, and they took political themes and political intrigue and made one of the most enthralling and entertaining thrillers, and I'm going to call it a thriller, that I've seen in years. We later on discover that he is, of course, a rogue Hydra agent, and we also know that he has a deep connection with Nick Fury. The two of them shaking hands, talking about their history together. It's good stuff mostly, because you actually feel like they were once good friends. That's definitely what makes the next scene so much more impactful, as Nick Fury is driving home from work, and all of a sudden he's being targeted. So this eventually leads to a pretty awesome car chase that unfortunately leads to the Winter Soldier blowing up Nick Fury's car, and he uses an object that looks a lot like a lightsaber in order to cut a hole through the car so he can escape, which was really cool. It really looks like a lightsaber, and it was brought to the light by the directors themselves, which was pretty hilarious. And when I watched that scene, I'm like, oh wow, that does look like a lightsaber, because I'd never noticed that before. This movie ups the stakes in virtually everything, and it doesn't make it worse at all. It just makes it better because of good writing and good direction. So the next scene is Cap, of course, returning home, and he's talking to this girl who we later find out is, of course, a S.H.I.E.L.D. agent, who you wonder if you can actually really trust, because in this sequence, Nick Fury tells him that not only are ears everywhere, eyes are everywhere, he can't trust anyone because S.H.I.E.L.D. has now been compromised. So when that woman walks in after Nick Fury's been shot, and she tries to tell him that she's a S.H.I.E.L.D. agent, you kind of wonder, is she really a S.H.I.E.L.D. agent, or is she someone else from this rogue organization, or someone who wants to kill Cap, or kill Fury? So of course this leads Cap to finding the Winter Soldier, throwing the shield at him with one of the coolest shots from the trailers that unfortunately spoiled it. That was so great! I love seeing that the first time in the theater, even though it was in the trailer. It just built up to this awesome moment because Nick Fury's been shot. He tells him that S.H.I.E.L.D.'s been compromised. So of course, with Nick Fury being shot in the chest, we don't know if he's going to survive or not. But the problem with the MCU universe is that a lot of people really just don't stay dead. And even though he turns out to be alive later on, it's like, yeah, I kind of knew that. But it didn't really bother me at all because I'm thinking, yeah, Nick Fury, he's not going to die. This, however, leads to a sequence where Alexander Pierce first meets Captain America. And they get into a conversation about, what does Cap know? What did Fury tell him before he got shot? Because from his mind and his perspective, Cap was the last person to see Fury get shot and basically die. Even Alexander Pierce himself doesn't know that his best friend survived. However, Cap tells him he doesn't know, and he says that S.H.I.E.L.D. has somehow been compromised. Pierce realizes, oh boy, my cover is blown. So he sends assassins to kill Cap in a great sequence fight in an elevator. The directors actually said that this sequence took about 3 weeks to shoot. And it's just great. Every shot feels just so cool. It's so fast, quick. But it doesn't feel like you're scrambling to find out what's going on because it's all right in front of you. There's nothing really hidden with any of the action sequences, in my mind at least. So now, of course, realizing that Cap will be named as a fugitive and a vigilante, he flees from the scene and with the help of Black Widow decides to find out what actually was on that hard drive, and they discover that it's actually Steve Rogers' old military base. However, what they find at this military base changes everything. This moment, seeing it for the first time in the theater, my mind was blown. I think everyone's minds were absolutely blown by this sequence, where the computer consciousness of Dr. Zola reveals that Hydra has been secretly working inside of S.H.I.E.L.D. for over 70 years. This kind of plot twist changes everything about the MCU. It changes everything we thought we knew. As I've said before, Captain America the Winter Soldier consistently delivered the unexpected in almost every way, and that's what made it such a better and far more superior sequel. So with the help of a man named Sam Wilson, played by Anthony Mackie, who is actually the character that Steve meets at the beginning of the film, who we find out is actually the Falcon, with his help, they team up to take down the Winter Soldier. And something that I really liked, that I never really paid much attention to, that, I probably did notice, and I think we all did notice, but we didn't really give it a lot of thought, is that throughout this entire sequence, and throughout him learning about what's been going on with S.H.I.E.L.D., Cap is actually not in his suit at all. He's just in regular clothes. This actually reveals quite a lot because he doesn't need his superhero costume to be a superhero. After yet another awesome twist is revealed about what Dr. Zola's algorithm was, that it basically looks into people's past to predict their future, which is just great. I think it's a plot that actually really works, and it's just so effective. The Winter Soldier ends up tracking him down, and this leads to an awesome highway battle sequence that leads to one of my all-time favorite street brawls. I mean, this street fight is one of the greatest scenes I have seen, not only in a comic book movie, but I think out of any action movie ever. Because there's so much internal conflict going on, and once again, as I've just stated, Steve Rogers is just in his regular clothes. He's not in his Captain America outfit, and in this fight, he learns just plain that the Winter Soldier is Bucky, his best friend that he thought was dead, but is still alive. And it's a great twist. Unfortunately, it's the only twist that was kind of spoiled in the trailers, but once again, it doesn't really bother me that much because I've seen it so many times, that the twist actually feels very necessary and it feels very real. And now he has a completely different mindset about what to do with Bucky throughout the rest of the movie. This one twist really not only changes his mind, but it changes his thoughts on everything. And that's what makes his character so much better, is that he realizes, should I kill my best friend? Do I have to kill my best friend? But it's the fact that these characters are so well written, the fact that they're very fleshed out, the fact that they're flawed even, that it makes it even more amazing. And we also learn that the Winter Soldier has actually not only been brainwashed, but his entire memory's been wiped. So he doesn't even know who Cap is. He doesn't even know who Steve Rogers is. And we find out Alexander Pierce is behind that. So technically, the Winter Soldier doesn't really know exactly what Project Insight really is. In the final act of the film, we discover that Nick Fury is still alive, and of course they have to team up in order to stop the Winter Soldier, which is fantastic. And now Cap is able to get his own costume with a good Stan Lee cameo by saying, so our final battle begins, and it's filled with explosions, gunplay, all the great stuff. So the big climactic battle begins with explosions, gunplay, action, all the great stuff. As Cap, Black Widow, and now Falcon, who has his wings, literally, Cap reveals to S.H.I.E.L.D. that it's been taken over by Hydra, and while this is happening, all the Hydra agents are taking their place, and we find out that a lot of the military guys are really the Hydra agents, which is actually a very smart move because you don't want to just train the IT guys to be the Hydra agents. But as Cap attempts to reprogram the third helicarrier to target all of the helicarriers themselves, he's stopped by the Winter Soldier, which leads to a great line.
People are gonna die, Buck. I can't let that happen. Please don't make me do this.
This final battle, as I stated before, is so great because the internal conflict of the two characters could not be better. Because here we have Bucky, who doesn't even know what Cap is, and we have Cap, who knows Bucky and was his best friend, but he's thinking, do I really have to kill my best friend? It's a very difficult decision for him that not only impacts this movie, but I think will impact all the rest of the Marvel films that Cap will be in. When Cap tells Bucky he doesn't want to fight him because he's his friend, Bucky just wails on him as the ship collapses and he just falls into the water. However, with Cap's last line, because I'm with you till the end of the line, Bucky suddenly has a realization. Huh? He's thinking, how do I know that line? So it turns out his mind hasn't completely been brainwashed yet. And then Cap, of course, falls into the water, but is, of course, saved by the Winter Soldier, who just puts him on shore. He actually gets away. This is really the only time, besides really Loki, where a villain has actually really escaped. He just has Cap on shore. He's unconscious. As Cap attempts to visit Nick Fury's fake grave with the great Ezekiel signature on the bottom right-hand corner of it, which I thought was really cool. Great nod to those Tarantino fans out there. I'm pretty sure you know who you are. That was a really awesome nod. Sam looks at Cap and he says, "You're going after him, right?" And Cap says, "You don't have to come with me if you don't want to." And then Sam's response is,
When do we start?
fade to black, roll credits. Guys, The Winter Soldier is just an amazing film. And with what I described with the plot, I love this movie. This is honestly one of my favorite movies, I think, in general. It has a great plot, political intrigue, and all the glorious action that you want to see is right in front of you. This is one of the most rewatchable films I think I've ever seen, because it just keeps wanting you to go back, because there are so many hidden things that get uncovered with multiple viewings that you probably didn't notice on your previous viewing, that it makes for a very entertaining and compelling story. And guys, I love Captain America the Winter Soldier so much, and of course, guys, of course, this film deserves an A+. Guys, thank you so much as always for watching my reviews. I appreciate this as always. I love to hear those comments, so send them in the comment section below. You guys are the greatest people ever. Thank you so much for watching, and stay tuned.